I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans.
Dare I call it classic David Bowie, even though it only emanates as far back as 1997. I mean, Bowie was classic in the 1970s, right? However, I'm Afraid of Americans was released as a single from the album Earthling back in October of 1997. This is not Friday. It is Wednesday. It is the morning after an historic U.S. presidential election where Donald Trump has been reelected to the Oval Office. The 47th president of the United States is the same as the 45th president of the United States. And I received an email last night from Mark who said, could you play I'm Afraid of Americans to start the show tomorrow morning? I know it's not Friday, but I would like to know, or I would like to hear a request. We do all Request Fridays here on the show. Get to hear a little bit of your favorite song when you call in at any time during the week. Just let our guy on the other side of the glass know what song you'd like to hear, or send me an email to Mike at 570news.com, and we'll get your song played for you, a bit of it, during our show on Friday. It's a talk radio station, but we like our music too. So all Request Fridays is a thing. But Mark said, hey, could you play this for me tomorrow morning? And I asked Mark, is your request dependent on the outcome of the vote? He said, no, I just thought it would be fitting to play I'm Afraid of Americans to start the show today. And so your request is our command. And here we are starting the day with, I mean, we could have gone with Won't Get Fooled Again, right? Here's to the new boss. Same as the old boss. I don't know how you divided your evening last night. I intended on just focusing exclusively on hockey, but I must admit, and I did that not because I have little to no interest in what was going on. On the contrary, I recognize the biggest story in the world last night and into this morning is the re-election of one Donald J. Trump to the presidency of the United States. But I just knew we weren't going to be solving anything anytime soon. So my intention was just to focus on my favorite National Hockey League team. But I have to admit, I got caught up in the coverage, being I'm a huge radio geek, a big broadcasting geek generally, and flipping around from station to station, watching how they were covering this historic vote, I found fascinating. So I jumped into hockey midway through the second period last night, just in time to watch the Leafs score their first 2 power play goals and jump out to the lead that they would not relinquish en route to a 4-0 victory over the Boston Bruins. And then I went back to the coverage of the U.S. election, not surprised at all that nothing had been decided and nobody was declaring anything, although it was a significant lead for Donald Trump, as one would expect, because the smaller, more rural areas with fewer votes report in quickest. And so you see that big lead because that tends to be where Republican support is. But by the time I went to bed, nothing was sure. And in fact, just after or just before I got up this morning, because my alarm goes at 5:30, the Associated Press declared Donald Trump the 47th president of the United States. And here we are. And I got to say, just when it comes to the coverage, I loved, and I'm not just saying this to be a good corporate guy, but I loved what we were able to provide after the Leafs game on 570 News Radio last night. I thought it was top-notch coverage from a group of really, really talented broadcasters that helped bring us all of that information right through the night. Whoops, there we go. The sound wasn't there right away. The sound is there now. And let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. A third campaign and a second win for Donald Trump, who has been elected the 47th president of the United States.
The task before us will not be easy, but I will bring every ounce of energy, spirit, and fight that I have in my soul to the job that you've entrusted to me. This is a great job. There's no job like this. This is the most important job in the world.
The Associated Press declaring Trump the winner just before 5:30 this morning. Kamala Harris is yet to speak to her supporters. Number 2, Cambridge City Council passing a motion last night appealing to the province for help in managing homelessness and addictions, which could include clearing encampments and moving people into involuntary treatment. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Even as the provincial government works on legislation that would ban bike lanes on city streets if they eliminate lanes of traffic, the region of Waterloo is moving forward with plans for new cycling infrastructure on Herb Street, King Street, Caroline Street, and Bridgeport Road. Number 4, police in Brantford looking for 2 men who allegedly left a grocery store with $1,200 worth of butter that they did not pay for. It's the latest in a string of what other investigators have called large-scale butter thefts in the province. Police in Guelph also investigating recent thefts of large quantities of butter from 2 grocery stores. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the price of Bitcoin has hit a new high as investors bet that former U.S. President Donald Trump's victory in yesterday's presidential election will be a boon for cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin jumped nearly 8% to a record $75,345 U.S. in early trading today before falling back a bit. Trump has pledged to make America, quote, the crypto capital of the planet and to create a strategic reserve of Bitcoin. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. But the biggest story on the planet is the re-election of Donald Trump. I'm sure you've got thoughts, feelings, maybe even prayers for our friends south of the border. Would love to hear from you. What do you think of last night's results? What do you think of 4 more years of Donald Trump? Trump 2.0 begins today. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. I started the show by reminding you that every Friday is an All Request Friday on this radio program because we had a request to start the show today from Mark, who wanted to hear Bowie's I'm Afraid of Americans. Something else that I'm sure you know about the show is that the minute we begin every day, phone lines are open so that you get the chance to be a participant in our conversations. 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. What do you think of the results of last night's election? As of early this morning, Donald Trump declared the 47th president of the United States. Does this surprise you in any way? Does it scare you? Does it excite you? I'll take you back to a conversation we had on the show yesterday ahead of the vote. And I'll remind you that I think we have to consider here. I know the focus is always on, and I think rightfully so. I mean, he makes himself the story. There's no question about that. And it still boggles my mind to a degree that Donald Trump was able to stand as a candidate for office, the highest office in the land, given his history and his absolute moral failings. It's fascinating to me that the system would elevate him to be the candidate. But in light of that, if you look at this from the other side of the coin, consider who the Republicans ran as a nominee. And even with all of those failings, very public, the Democrats and Kamala Harris could not win. I think that's telling us something, isn't it, if we want to look at it from that side of the coin? And I'll take you back to something I've referenced recently on the show. The great Will McAvoy, he's a fictional character from the HBO show The Newsroom, but it's an excellent show. If you haven't seen it, maybe go back and give it a watch. Jeff Daniels played Will McAvoy. And again, fictional character, but he had this to say in the opening episode of the series The Newsroom.
You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so damn always?
Well, they lost, so ding dang always again to Donald Trump, who has been reelected as president of the United States. Let's go to the phones. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. The only thing I really wanted to comment on the election in the States last night is it now gives time for both parties to regroup and figure out the future. We'll never hear from Donald Trump again post 4 years, and Kamala Harris is washed up. She should never have been the candidate. She was given it as a gift. So now the Democrats can find somebody that could really win and bring America forward, or the Republicans can do the same thing. So that's my take on the whole thing. 4 years of what we know Donald Trump's going to do because he did it already. And then we can start looking at what the world's going to look like post-Donald Trump.
Yeah, you know, it's a really interesting perspective, Chris. And the one thing I'd ask is, do you really think, just given who he is, that we won't hear from Donald Trump again? I mean, maybe not politically, but do you ever think it's going to be a quiet place as long as Donald Trump is walking the earth?
He's going to be 82 after 8 years of the significantly hardest job on the planet. And I think that's got to take a toll on stamina. So, yeah, I think that he's going to go back to Reno Del Mar or whatever it's called, play some golf, get a hip replacement, and retire.
All right, Chris, I appreciate that call. And, you know, I like the optimism in it. And he's right. Again, I'll just remind you from Will McAvoy.
You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so damn always?
They've got 4 years, the liberals/Democrats in the United States, to figure this out, to maybe reinvent themselves for the future, to appeal to Americans at the polls. And so, too, do the Republicans. If Donald Trump was the winner this time, do they need to find the next Donald Trump, or will the Republicans also reinvent themselves over this next 4-year term? John is with us on the phones. Good morning, John.
Morning to you, Mike. I didn't follow the election, not as close as a lot of political pundits. I don't think, in comments to your first caller, I don't even think he's healthy enough to finish off his 4 years. But one thing, I was up early like you and went to bed watching the team I won't mention win the game last night. But I find that just some comments that first came to mind, a lot of these people who voted Donald Trump out 4 years ago actually voted him in this time. So that was one thought that came to mind. It's hard to comprehend that a type of person that he is actually now running the so-called strongest nation in the world. I feel a little bit for the, I guess, the black American woman who probably aspired and dreamt of a Harris win. I don't think I totally agree with your other caller that the Liberal Party will regroup. I don't think Harris was the proper person. She certainly didn't distance herself quick enough from Biden. But I think in Trump's weak message of border security, I think that's basically what won him the election. I hope that a lot of these asylum seekers, refugees that are in the U.S. will not look to Canada now as a safe haven now that Trump is there. Finally, I guess he said he wants to reunite the country. I don't actually believe he is capable of doing that with his personality. And I think first on his agenda will to be strike down all those that were against him and make them pay for it in the first couple of years. So they're just some of my early morning thoughts.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the call. I also appreciate you not mentioning the team that shall not be named on this radio program. I didn't even know they played last night. I focused on the Leafs. Interesting point about the people that didn't vote for Trump 4 years ago voting him back in this time. I'm not 100% sure of that, and I haven't looked closely enough at the numbers. But one thing I did take away from the coverage I was watching last night is that there was an erosion in support for the Democrats under Kamala Harris versus when Joe Biden was the candidate 4 years ago. So it might be more a case of the Democrats losing than Donald Trump winning, although his support clearly was maintained, wasn't it? So there's that. And then the point on immigration is not lost on me. I think that's an issue both here and in the United States, but I'm going to hammer on the economy too. It's the economy, stupid. And with the economy being as bad as it is and has been these last 4 years, when people feel that so viscerally, when they feel that, change is almost inevitable. And any of us, and I was among them, who thought we were going to get an early federal election here in Canada, I would bet you that that's the reason we haven't had an early federal election, because the economy is still where it is. The hope, of course, for the federal Liberals here in Canada is that things have improved enough by next fall to give the governing Liberals a chance at re-election, because with the economy in the state that it is, that's one of the primary reasons that we've seen the change that we've seen in the United States. How do you feel about Trump 2.0? Let us know your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio. Couple of minutes away from your 9:30 update in the 570 News Center. Let's go quickly back to the phones, hear more from you on Trump 2.0. Mayor Jake, good morning, Your Worship.
Mike, how are you now?
I'm good, and you?
Good. How about those Leafs, eh?
How about those Leafs?
Last night.
I love it.
So I kind of thought of something really interesting last night. I talked to a few friends that were in the States, and over the last few months, kind of leading up to this election. And then the question I always asked them was, you know, like I'd ask, like, who are you voting for? And they say, well, we're voting for Trump. And I said, okay, so why? And then their answer is always, would you be happy with how the things went in the last 4 years? And I think that's really interesting when you ask people why they're voting for a certain person, is because they're not happy with the current leadership. And I'd say the same thing about Canada, is a lot of people aren't happy with how things are going here, so they're looking for change. And I think that's very interesting kind of way to look at it, is like, you could be a lifelong Democrat, but if you weren't happy over the last 4 years, and you kind of notice that, okay, well, now the VP that's running, is it going to be different? Is it going to be the same? So a lot of people kind of maybe panic voted and didn't really look at the big picture.
Yeah, you know, I think it's a great point, Mayor Jake. Donald Trump and the Republicans took a page out of Ronald Reagan's book from decades ago. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And don't ever forget that we so rarely vote governments in, we almost always vote them out. We'll get some analysis from a retired political science professor from the University of Waterloo just after this update. And then more of your calls now that we are into the Trump 2.0 era. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. I don't think there is a soul listening today without a thought or feeling on last night's results of the U.S. presidential election. Let's get some analysis now from our good friend Peter Wollstonecroft, who's a retired professor of political science from the University of Waterloo. Peter, good morning.
Good morning indeed.
What does last night's result tell you?
Oh, what a big question. And the word that comes to mind is uncertainty. And there's always, that's the nature of politics, is we're not too sure where we're going this way or that way. But Mr. Donald Trump is highly unpredictable and seems to be given to impulse rather than thought, impressions rather than serious reading and reflection. So we have no idea what he's going to do. Now, when he was president of the United States, one of the things that I read on the many books and articles was the number of times he said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And the advisors around him would say, well, this would be a problem. We can't do it for this reason. And most of the time, unhappily, he backed off. Will those people be there? And so around him, I don't think they will be. It's a terrible thing, as I was thinking about this interview, is if you asked me, is Donald Trump a fascist, I would say, I don't know. But I'm not at all surprised that in the context of 2024 that question would be asked of me.
To that end, then, do the next 4 years concern you greatly?
Well, what is he going to do? I can tell you there's great desperation in Ukraine. I would think the people in Taiwan may be wondering what Trump's attitude will be towards China and what it wants to do with Taiwan. One of the happiest people in the world is Netanyahu in Israel, because he clearly wanted Trump and not Biden or Harris or anybody on the Democratic side. So what I suppose you could say, well, one thing we know is that Donald Trump is going to retreat from the world at large. He doesn't believe in international organizations, doesn't believe in the United Nations, doesn't believe in NATO, things like that. So he's an isolationist. So that, in a sense, we know that, but what he actually does in light of that, we don't know. He says he's going to put tariffs on all over the place. That would have, by all accounts of economists, a disastrous effect on the United States, Canada, of course, and the world at large, because we get into a trade war, and that's not good. So there is some certainty that he talks about those things and has for a long time. But what he actually does, we don't know. And I go back to the point is that the first time he was president, he had people whom it's clear he didn't want to have, but those are the people he had around him. Now I will say, it looks like he's been well prepared for the transition, and the people around him will be people who believe in him and will follow him. And so, does he have the introspective mind that would lead him to say, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't say that? Well, the last 2 weeks of the campaign were a classic example of don't ever do this, and he still won, and his party won big time.
And then that makes me think, too, from the other side of this coin, Peter, because even though he did what he ought not do right into the final weeks of the campaign and still emerges the victor, if a man like this, with his criminal record and his sketchy, to put it kindly, past, can win, what is that telling us about the Democrats?
Well, Kamala Harris was in a bad patch because it takes a long time to build a presidential campaign, and so she came very late, and her platform was very, very light, and there was, to my mind, the grumpy old guy, there was too much joy, too much levity, when many Americans, millions and millions of Americans, are feeling a big pinch, not at the end of the month, but a week before the end of the month. Maybe 2 weeks from the end of the month. And they're feeling cramped financially, and the prospects don't look good for them. Despite the fact that the Economist says, the United States says the world's best economy, ordinary people did not feel that. And a famous saying of James Carville, Democratic strategist, it's the economy, stupid. So that underlies all these things. And so, yes, Donald Trump has all his character flaws. He says ridiculous things. People go, oh, well, there goes Donald Trump again. But he speaks to my concerns, and that's what's important. He will deliver on the inflation issue. I don't think he will deliver on inflation at all. It'd probably make it worse, but that doesn't matter. People feel cramped, and it doesn't matter at what any aspect of life, from A to Z. Things are much more expensive now than they were 2 months ago, or 6 months ago, or a year ago, and so that drives the vote, which is why a lot of people would go and vote Trump, and also the Republicans. I mean, the Republicans control the Senate. And we don't know, but I suspect they're going to control the House of Representatives. So Donald Trump has 2 years of smooth sailing, and there are a lot of people in the Republican Party whose first allegiance is to Donald Trump. And if he says we got to swim across the river, they'll go swimming across the river.
It is going to be a fascinating 4 years ahead, that is for sure. Peter, really appreciate you making time for us this morning. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too. Bye now. Peter Wollstonecraft, a retired professor of political science from the University of Waterloo. Sounds cautious, to say the least, considering the kind of campaign once again run by Donald Trump right up until the end, and the sort of rhetoric we heard through that campaign. I will confess, I reached out to Peter early this morning because I feel a little bit the fool this morning. I bought into the idea that we would not know for many days still who would be the next president of the United States. I thought we would be in a period of several days unrest. And lo and behold, I woke up this morning, and just after I did that, the Associated Press declared Donald Trump the victor in the election. So I'm very much appreciative to Peter for responding at the last minute, at the 11th hour, to be here with us and provide his analysis. You've heard that. You may have heard some of our callers earlier with their responses to the 47th president of the United States being the same as the 45th. Donald Trump ran and won over Hillary Clinton in 2016. He ran and lost to Joe Biden and did not lose willingly. That's not the right word. Graciously. He did not lose graciously in 2020, but he lost. And here we are in 2024, and he runs and wins against Kamala Harris. What do you see for the next 4 years? How are you feeling this morning in the wake of last night's election results in the United States? Let us know your thoughts here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
When many Americans, millions and millions of Americans, are feeling a big pinch, not at the end of the month, but a week before the end of the month, and they're feeling cramped financially, and the prospects don't look good for them. Despite the fact that The Economist says the United States has the world's best economy, ordinary people did not feel that.
Bingo. And because ordinary people did not feel the strength of the U.S. economy, ordinary people voted in, or should I say voted out, the Democrats, as opposed to voting in Donald Trump. And I'm not trying to take away from the historic nature, first president to be reelected after missing a term since 1892. Like, there is significance there. But as we so often do, we vote out governments as opposed to voting them in. Donald Trump back into the Oval Office. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Amanda, good morning.
Good morning. I think people might vote emotionally. Because part of me because 4 years ago, I recognized that Biden was starting to fail intellectually. But yet Trump has 3 million less votes this year than he did 4 years ago. So I thought Harris would have won because she's more mentally stable than Biden was, and yet Trump still won. So I was a little confused about how people are voting that way.
I think it's got everything to do with the economy, or mostly I think it has to do with the economy.
I think so. I was listening to talk shows, and because they were saying that people don't really care about the environment when they can't put food on their table.
I couldn't agree more, Amanda. I appreciate the call. And yeah, it's interesting when you think back on what this campaign brought us, which was Joe Biden stepping away. He clearly was unable to hold office for another 4 years. There was no reason to believe that he could. He seemed so frail and mentally weak. Donald Trump is 78. He'll be 82 by the time this term is up. Yet he was still deemed the better/stronger option over Kamala Harris. Shane, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Mike. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Well, I'm a little uneasy, shall we say, about this president being reelected. I mean, you made a statement that, sure, he's the historical one that got back in for a second time. We didn't say that, unfortunately he's a criminal that got back in, but I mean, aren't most politicians, but that's just my view. I think, in all honesty, he is going to tank our Canadian dollar when he adds all these tariffs onto our goods that we're going to be shipping over into the States. Do you honestly think, though, that he's going to go back to try and put that wall back up again, the one that he was talking about? Now,
I don't see why he wouldn't try to do that again, to be honest with you.
That's just kind of the guy he is. But, I mean, I'm very nervous now to see how these two wars are going to continue. I honestly think that the war in Ukraine is probably going to end now with Russia taking over. But I'm very uneasy about how this one over in Israel is going to take. Your thoughts on that one? I'm going to hang up and just listen to that.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate the call. I should have gone back because I think, was it the war in the Middle East that he was going to stop? The day one of them he promised. I believe it was Middle East. But either way, I don't know how Donald Trump would achieve what he said he would do when it comes to ending wars with the stroke of a pen. But I remain very curious to watch him try. Willie, you're on 570 News Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Listen, I don't think we should get too revved up just yet. He's got 2 months before he gets signed in officially. And unless they've got some sort of bulletproof bubble wrap for him, I think he's going to get taken out before he ever gets there.
Come on. Really?
Oh, I don't know. He's definitely got a target on him.
Well, that's not something I expected to hear this morning. The potential of a successful assassination attempt. There was one at a rally, unsuccessful. We believe there was another on his golf course, also unsuccessful, though no shots fired that time. Willie thinks that Donald Trump may not even see the inside of the Oval Office again because this 2-month transition period will lead to somebody being successful in their attempts to cash in on that target that Willie says is on Trump's back. How are you feeling about 4 more years of Donald Trump? It is Trump 2.0. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Well, my friend Tony, who I happen to know is a staunch conservative, sends an email to Mike at 570news.com under the headline or subject line, Donald Dumb, the most ignorant, potty-mouthed, sick, mentally ill, arrogant, cowardly I have ever seen on TV. I have decided to become a follower straight to the funeral home. Tony, don't take it so hard. Don't take it so hard. It's only 4 years. What's the worst that can happen? Says the guy sitting comfortably in his chair in Kitchener. Russell's email to Mike at 570news.com. Let's just hope the world survives the next 4 years or less. After that, we don't have to listen to him ever again. Back to the phones. Ernie, good morning.
Hey, Mike. Your last comment just gave me a good laugh. I definitely think he has a big target on his back. You can already see just from the previous attempts and everything going on. I I believe a lot of people that voted yesterday were, I think, all the Hitler stuff they were saying all the time and calling his supporters garbage, I think really fired up people that might not have voted yesterday but got off the couch and went in. And I believe the importance, and this is a thing too that maybe you can agree with or not, I don't know, it's the media outlets, podcasts, like people are getting their information from, they're not listening to CNN and Fox nearly as much as what they used to do. They're getting their information from tons of podcasts. Like the Joe Rogan thing was huge. Like I think Harris should have done that regardless of how she was going to look or not. I think it really would have helped her if she was just open and had a conversation just about who she is. And just the fact too that the biggest Arab community endorsed him, and the Jews endorsed him. Like when does that ever happen? Where they both endorsed Donald Trump? But that's all I got to say, Mike.
All right, Ernie, appreciate the call. Let's squeeze in one more before 10. Kerr, I've got about 40 seconds.
Okay. Hi, Mike. I just want to say, I think for all the things that the U.S. touts about freedom and equality, I think it's just not ready for a female president. I think that's what came through. In both the elections, we had Hillary and, in this case, Kamala Harris. And I think America's not ready. You know, Hillary was one of the top, as far as I was concerned, the most experienced politician, although she did have a lot of baggage. But she got beat. And you can't elect somebody like that. How are you going to get Kamala in?
Kerr, that's an excellent point. I hadn't given it much thought yet. But in 2016, it was a woman. In 2024, it's a woman again. And maybe, just maybe, America is not ready for that. We are ready for the latest information from the 570 News Center. And then an interesting story about a couple from Guelph wanting to have a child and searching for a surrogate using social media. Their story coming up next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, those of us who have wanted to start a family and been successful in so doing may not often think about those couples who wish to do the same but struggle to start a family. And there are various options available, one of them being surrogacy. A couple from Guelph is taking an interesting approach to that particular approach, surrogacy, to starting a family. Pleased to be joined on the show this morning by Stephanie Craig and Mike Murphy. It's good to have you both here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So can you start by just sharing a little bit of your journey with us as a couple trying to start a family, and what led you to seek surrogate support to start that family?
For sure, yeah. So we started kind of like most couples, and after a year, saw a little bit of fertility help, got a little bit of fertility help, and were pregnant in 2018. Unfortunately, in 2019, I was in trouble at 24 weeks, and our baby didn't make it, and so we lost our son at that point. A few months later, we kind of started trying again, and had another miscarriage, went to IVF, and had 8 more miscarriages, so a total of 9 miscarriages. And after our most recent miscarriage in March of this year, our doctor, who's wonderfully supportive, recommended that, maybe I'm not the right one to be carrying our child. So we have embryos, but she recommended getting a surrogate to carry for us instead.
I can hear in your voice, Stephanie. I mean, I can only imagine how difficult not only this process has been, but for you to speak so openly about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough for both of us, actually. There are actually a lot of resources available for women, and I do my best to support her. But even as a male, like there's very far fewer resources available for us as well. It just takes a mental toll on everyone involved.
I can only imagine. And I applaud you both for being as open as you are about this, because I'm sure you know that you're not alone in this. Many couples go through similar things. So let's take it then to your decision to seek a surrogate. What's it like trying to find a surrogate?
It's been interesting. We knew kind of when we started this process that we would have to be a lot more open than we have been in the past. We've actually been very, very private about our journey. Most of our friends and our close friends knew, but most of our family and kind of peripheral friends didn't know what we were going through. So we were recommended that, social media is kind of your best bet to find somebody because it has a wider reach. So the world has changed, and we kind of had to go with that and become public with our search.
How scary has it been for you to be so public about this search?
Oh, absolutely terrifying. I'm the kind of person that just doesn't have social media accounts. I don't have Instagram. I don't have any of that. And putting myself out there was just, it was just something I couldn't even think of. I'm like, this is terrifying. I don't like having an online presence. I'm not that guy, but you do what you have to do.
So how does one use social media platforms then in search of connecting to a surrogate? What do you do? Do you have to be, I'm no expert myself. I keep some channels maintained for the purposes of my work, but you got to be creative. You got to stand out from the crowd. Maybe how do you use social media to connect to a surrogate?
So I'll be really honest. We hired someone to help us. So there is Not My Tummy. Baden Cole is an amazing support, and so we hired her back in, I think, June, July. We started, and it kind of started with she gave us a few ideas that were, kind of standard ideas, and then I started coming up with some ideas. She and I would meet, once a week, and she would take my ideas and she would do some stuff with it, and then I would take the ideas and do some stuff with it, and somehow this has resulted with us going a bit viral on Instagram with our search, particularly with one video that's been shared over 295 times. So that's kind of amazing if you think about the amount of support we've received from that.
Do you know what it was about that particular video that caught people's attention?
We've been told we got a lot of comments from around the world. Actually, we'll get comments from someone in like the Netherlands being like, "It's reached the Netherlands, by the way, and we're supporting you." I think it's just it was a bit goofy. It was to music from that we all know from Shrek. So I think that was part of it as well. But yeah, I think people just thought it was a very funny, kind of goofy way of searching. We were literally searching outdoors looking for someone.
Okay, so how much control do you as a couple have over that someone that you ultimately connect with as a surrogate? Like, are you sort of creating a profile of the sort of person you'd like to be your surrogate?
I think this whole thing is very much so like dating. So it's us putting ourselves out there and saying, this is who we are. We do have a goofy side. We do have our interests, and like really trying to make that obvious. And then as we meet, because we have met some people, and we've met some wonderful people. A lot of the time it's kind of been the wrong time for them. But it's like finding that right fit of like, do we fit with them? Is this someone who we can trust? Is this someone who they can trust us? It goes both ways. So I think, we've been very open online. We've been very, in terms of like what we're looking for, we've been very open in terms of who we are. And yeah, I think it's just finding that right match, just like dating.
Yeah, you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person, and you're going to get to know them. It has to be someone that you can get along with and talk to on a regular basis, and just, has to be the right fit.
Sure. So I will confess to not knowing a ton about this process. As I alluded to at the beginning, there are ways, if you cannot start a family on your own, IVF, etc. I understood that surrogacy would be an option, but taking to social media to make that connection, a la online dating, makes me very curious. I mean, obviously you're public, so I'm guessing this is a legal way to go about doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So surrogacy in Canada is legal. It is altruistic. So it's a bit different than in other countries where you're not allowed to pay someone to be a surrogate. So in the US, you're allowed to pay someone in many, in many states. However, we also want to make sure that the surrogate's not out of pocket for anything. So legally, we are allowed to cover things like travel to the clinic or travel to the hospital, or any extra costs that come up throughout pregnancy, extra childcare that's needed, salary top up after birth, those types of things. There's a big long list on the Government of Canada's website of things that we're allowed to cover for the surrogate. So the person will have to do it altruistically, not making money, but they won't be out of pocket any money, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So where can we find you and follow your journey on social media?
We have an Instagram. It's Adventurous IPs. So if you put Adventurous IPS, we have a Instagram account, and on there I have a link to our website, adventurousIPs.ca. I have a link to our matching day profile, which is another way that people have find matches with surrogates, and that has all of our information. But yeah, those are probably the best ways of finding us.
Have you made any interesting connections so far?
We've definitely had a few people that have reached out, and some have just not been the right fit for us. Others are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But we're still optimistic and hopeful that we'll find the right person.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've met a really amazing community of people. Maybe not like a surrogate for us, but like people who are surrogates for others or other intended parents. So that's what the IP stand for, intended parents. This whole community is pretty remarkable. It's pretty amazing. I mean, 295 people sharing our story. I think that speaks for itself in terms of how supportive this community is.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Sorry, Mike.
I'll say we've had people reach out who aren't surrogates or not capable of being surrogates, and have just wanted to give us their support, which is also a great thing too.
Well, and that's what I was just thinking about. I mean, the two of you through this process. I mean, has it dawned on you that you're speaking for an entire community, and you're elevating what I would say is probably a pretty darn important conversation here?
It is not lost on us. This chance to be on this show. Thank you very much, by the way, for having us on the show. That we have been covered in other stories. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that people want to know more about this. And I have reached out to kind of our community as well and been like, are we doing an okay job? Like, are we representing you okay? And I've gotten some really amazing feedback. Like, for an example, the feedback I was given after one story was, make sure you don't say surrogate mother. I never said that, but it was said in a story. And that's, I think, something really important. There's really important language around this, and that the surrogate isn't the mother, right? The surrogate is someone who's carrying the child, but isn't the mother. The surrogate doesn't want to be known as that, and the intended parents want to be known as the mother. So I think, there's a lot of learning that's been happening along the way. But yes, it is not lost on us that we are speaking for a pretty significant number of people who are going through this.
It takes a great deal of courage, and I admire you both for this, and I wish you the very best of luck in your continued search. Thank you very much for joining the show today.
Thank you so much.
Stephanie Craig, Mike Murphy, trying to start their family. Adventurous IPS. You'll find them on Instagram, Adventurous IPS, and follow their journey, even if you just want to learn more about surrogacy. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
It's like finding that right fit of like, do we fit with them? Is this someone who we can trust? Is this someone who they can trust us? It goes both ways. So I think, we've been very open online. We've been very, in terms of like what we're looking for, we've been very open in terms of who we are. And yeah, I think it's just like finding that right match, just like dating.
Stephanie Craig and her husband, Mike Murphy, have been trying for many years now, going back to 2017, to have a baby. However, due to a medical condition, Stephanie was forced to give birth prematurely in 2019 at just 24 weeks. They lost the baby. There have been several miscarriages since then, including through the use of IVF or in vitro fertilization. And now the couple from Guelph have decided to take a rather interesting approach to surrogacy, which of course is another option for couples trying to start a family and unable to do so on their own. And what they have done, and it's completely legal, like it popped into my head, like, can you really do this? But as long as in Canada, the rules and laws allow for, as long as you're not paying someone to be your surrogate, then yes, they can do what this couple from Guelph has done, Stephanie Craig and Mike Murphy. They have taken to social media in an attempt to connect with a surrogate. And at the same time, they have become sort of the spokespeople for an entire community of couples who have sought surrogates in an attempt to start their family. And I think that's admirable and noble in and of itself, because these are not easy conversations to have. I could hear in Stephanie's voice this morning the difficulty that she had in detailing the failed attempts that they've had to bring a baby into this world. They would very much like to start that family. So if you're so inclined to learn more about surrogacy and to watch this Guelph family's journey, you can do so on Instagram at Adventurous IPS. And you'll see the video that's gone viral, been shared hundreds of times, that's really captured the attention from all over the world, really. And maybe you'll learn something about surrogacy and what it's like to be in this spot. Maybe, just maybe, you'll be that person that could be the match to help Stephanie and Mike have that baby they so desire. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's something that we have talked about on the show before, and it's reared its rather ugly head again. Trussler Road at the Expressway. We've been told by both Ontario's Ministry of Transportation and our regional government that this is an intersection, if you can call it that, Trussler Road at Highway 78, that has been prioritized for safety enhancements. And we were told that going on 2 years ago now, and still zero safety enhancements and collisions continue to occur. When will we get some action at this dangerous place on our roads? We'll talk about it coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We got a call on the show yesterday from Rory, who shared with us that his mother was involved in a collision on Trussler Road at the Highway 7-8 interchange. Fortunately, she was not seriously injured, but you can only imagine the impact. If you've ever been through anything similar, it certainly takes a toll. But the fact that this happened reminded me of something that we were talking about on this show and have been talking about off and on for many a year now, because it goes back almost 2 years to when I wrote to both the Ministry of Transportation in Ontario and our regional government asking for any sort of plan. Like, have they identified Trussler Road at Highway 7-8 as an area dangerous enough that it requires some sort of action? And I was told then by both levels of government, our regional government here and our provincial government through the Ministry of Transportation, that yes, this is an area that has been, quote, prioritized for safety enhancements. And imagine that since that time, there's been some fairly extensive work done on the ramps, both off 7-8 West at Trussler Road and on 7-8 West from Trussler onto 7-8 East. And yet, with all of that work being done, it was mostly the infrastructure beneath the road, and then the crews left, and they didn't leave behind any safety improvements whatsoever. I've shared some pictures that were posted to Reddit of the most recent collision. Turns out it involved our friend of the show, Rory's mom. But you can see the pictures for yourself on my X or Twitter feed at Farwell_WR and on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. And the bottom line is this. We talk about safety on our roads all the time. The region is constantly preaching to us safety, 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 how important it is. Individual counselors will tell us it's the number one issue they hear about. And so what are we doing? In our cities, we're reducing speed limits to 30 kilometers per hour in some residential areas. At the regional level, we're implementing a speed camera program, 175 cameras to be installed around our region by 2028. And what are we doing where things are actually happening that are dangerous? Nothing. I submit to you that if we were really serious about safety, we would prioritize places like Trussler Road at the Expressway. And the fact that we're not shows that we're not really concerned about safety at all. In fact, maybe what we're more concerned about is the cash grab that comes with the automated speed enforcement. Maybe that's what we want, the money as opposed to the actual safety. Because if we were concerned about safety, we would certainly be looking at making improvements in areas where serious collisions are occurring. It's time to get something done on Trustler Road at Highway 78. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In the past 7 years, Rotary's online auction has raised more than $750,000, and it is on again for another year. Ailton Santana is the online auction chair with Kitchener Rotary, joins us on the program. Ailton, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And Bill Proctor joins us as well. Bill is past president at Kitchener Rotary. Bill, it's good to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Ailton, if I can start with you, how did all of this get started? How did Kitchener Rotary get involved with this online auction?
Well, the auction was already going on since the 90s, right, as a live television show. But in 2006, then it became online. But Kitchener Rotary only joined after 2015. So this is our year 9 now.
And what do you use the funds raised for?
Oh, the funds are actually used to several local initiatives that we have going on. And we can say programs like a Better Tent City, Kids Ability, House of Friendship. That there are just too many to name here. But they are all essential services that make a big difference in our community.
How much have you been able to raise over the past 9 years since Kitchener Rotary became a part of this?
Well, the online auction has raised over $2 million. If we say since the beginning, but just last year as an example, we raised $130,000 across all the clubs that are participating, and the Kitchener Rotary Club alone was able to raise $25,000 last year. We are expecting that this year we can raise a bit more.
That's amazing, an amazing number. Bill, swinging over to you as past president, I've heard a lot about declining enrollment in service clubs. How are we doing it at Rotary?
Actually, we're doing quite well. Volunteer organizations are finding it challenging, but we have reached out, and people have reached out to us. I think they see what we provide a great service to the community, and people are still reaching out to us, and we're still we're holding our own. We can always use more, but that we do have people in the community willing to get involved.
So what does a typical Rotarian look like then, Bill? Who becomes a member of the club?
Well, it has certainly changed from when we began over 100 years ago. And I'm not sure there is anything such as a typical in terms of we appeal to all age levels, genders, faith backgrounds. I think what's most important, what's most common is a desire to do good, a desire to give back to the community. The motto of Rotary is service above self. So anybody who wants to embrace that ideal and get involved in making the world a better place, then they can become a typical Rotarian.
What drew you to Rotary?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
What drew you to Rotary?
What do I give to Rotary?
No, what was it that drew you to become a Rotarian?
My apologies.
That's okay. Attracted. I should have used attracted instead. What attracted you to Rotary?
My background was in education, teacher, principal, through all of that. And one of the major programs within Rotary is youth exchange. It was very, very big prior to the pandemic, and we're slowly getting back into it now. 8,000 plus students across the globe being transported to a different country for a year to promote understanding, to promote peace. So with my education background, that's what originally got me into Rotary. But once you get into Rotary and you realize the depth and breadth of everything that we do, it's not hard to become committed and to find many other things to keep you attracted.
Ailton, what about you? What was it that attracted you to Rotary?
Well, there's so much you can do by yourself, helping. Of course, that we can, as individuals, be able to give our collaboration. But I think that by joining the Rotary and the impact that it had in the local community, I think that my collaboration has more meaning than just being alone as a collective, being able to help so many institutions and trying to help people in need. This is actually what drew me to the club.
And you've taken on this role as the chair of the online auction. What kind of committee is required to make all of this happen, Ailton?
We have people doing different things, right? We are a group of 10 people inside the club, and we work with several different tasks on this, right? So I have to organize, or it's more like I'm part of a group, right? So I'm not doing this by myself. I'm actually the chair, but everybody is doing their piece of collaboration, and people, like, for example, the signs, everybody helps putting the signs on the road so people can know that the auction is on. We have people actually helping to get donations in the community. We arrange all the logistics in terms of transporting items, because it's not only our club, so we have to transfer items to different clubs so that the people can pick up the winning bidders can pick up the items with the warehouse that's closest to them. So it's a lot of planning, social media advertising as well, as I almost forgot to say that. So it's a lot of planning and trying to get people involved. This is actually what the task of the online auction committee is doing.
I've seen those signs along Trussler Road as I come to and from work, or on Iron Needles Boulevard. So the online auction has already opened, is that correct?
Yeah, it opened on November 2nd, and it's going to be still on until November 16th. And there's always something for everyone there. We have different articles there. You can check our website at online auction, rotaryonlineauction.ca, and then there you will be able to see the kind of like too many categories to mention here, but we have items such as a barbecue, we have gift baskets, we have golf packages, we have ski gear, tickets for games, Leafs games, Raptor games, and even an Airbnb there too. So there's a lot of items. There's something for everyone there. Just please go and check it out.
We will make sure people do that. RotaryOnlineAuction.ca, a little something for everyone there as we try to raise these important funds for initiatives in our community. Bill, beyond this online auction, what are some of the other projects that Kitchener Rotary is involved in?
In addition to raising funds to support different organizations, we do get involved in hands-on activities as well in our community, where they look after the Dom Carndillo Trail, and we provide funds for Better Trent City, but we also have volunteers there that help prepare food and work on maintenance. We are heavily involved in the Nutrition for Learning program, particularly at Forest Hill Public School. We've been involved in a lot of the Indigenous events in our community. Just yesterday, we had a group out planting trees in one of our parks. We're involved with the Easter Seals hockey tournament coming up. We've helped out with cruising on King Street. We've got involved with the Grand River Hospital Foundation events. Those are just some of the items that we like to get involved with hands-on. I think Ailton already mentioned that financially we provide supports for Better Tent City, Kids Ability, House of Friendship, Victoria Park Outdoor Exercise Equipment, Family and Children Services. It goes on and on. It does go on, and I hope that sometime in between all of that you find a little bit of time to sleep. We do, yes. But it's a fun thing to get involved with in many ways. It certainly sounds that way. Bill, Ailton, thank you very much for your service to our community through Rotary, and thanks for making time for the show this morning.
And thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Bill Proctor, Ailton Santana joining us on the show this morning. Bill is past president at Kitchener Rotary. Ailton is the chair of the online auction. If you go to rotaryonlineauction.ca, it is open now, and you'll be able to bid on items up until the 16th of this month. You name it, you're going to find it there, and you can help Kitchener Rotary raise funds for so many of those initiatives that you heard Bill mention, including Kids Ability, that outdoor gym equipment at Victoria Park. It just goes on and on. Family and Children's Services, etc. RotaryOnlineAuction.ca. Your bids can help you win that item and, of course, provide important funds for initiatives in our community. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. They are coming off their first undefeated regular season since 2005. And for what it's worth, just the 8th time in their program's 68-year history that they have had an undefeated season. And this Saturday, they will host their first Yates Cup since 2005. I am, of course, talking about the Wilfrid Laurier University Golden Hawks, who are home to the Western Mustangs this Saturday in the battle for the Yates Cup. Kate McRae-Bristol is the athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University, joins us to talk about it. Kate, good morning.
Good morning.
How does all of that land? It's great to have you here. How does all of that land with you? Undefeated season and now hosting the Yates Cup.
It's so great. As you were leading me in there, I had a big smile on my face. It's such an exciting time to be a Golden Hawk, no doubt, but also, for our community, we've got such a warm response and so much enthusiasm and excitement as we run into Saturday.
What does this mean, the chance to host the game, to have an undefeated season? What does it mean specifically to the athletic department at Wilfrid Laurier?
We've been actually talking a lot about that this fall as we've run through the whole season. Many of our fall teams have been on the hunt since August, right, for the opportunity to host playoffs and to win a title. And really what it means, I think, for us, not just as a department, but as a school and as an institution and as a community fixture, it means we're putting our excellence on display. We're showcasing it for the province, for the sport of football, for the Department of Athletics and Recreation. It strengthens our school spirit, our sense of pride and unity as we go on playoff runs, and it builds just great enthusiasm among not just our staff and student athletes, but the broader community, our alumni, and our really great community partners who've helped to elevate the game and our programs across the board.
You talked earlier about that community as well, Kate, and sort of the warm embrace that the Golden Hawks have had, and rightly so. I've seen a lot of buzz about it online, thousands of people showing up for games. What does it mean to have the city of Waterloo and the purple and gold kind of at the center of attention as we head into this all-important game on the weekend?
I've always felt that both institutions and our sport and athletic programs remain important cornerstones to the sport culture and the community culture of the broader community. I think being able for our student athletes and our programs to provide an opportunity to elevate the spirit and create long-lasting positive impacts on the community really, really matters. And so it helps us sort of build a pathway for future success to have the community support every Saturday at football games, but also at all of our offerings and programming throughout the year. So I think we're really building the opportunity to have broader impact across our community from a Laurier perspective as well. When people get to come out and support our programs and see how exceptional these student athletes are, this is some of the best football, in this case, in the country being played right now, right in our hometown. And so when our community members who may otherwise not be affiliated with Laurier get to come and see the hard work and effort that these student athletes are putting in on the field over and above their academic achievements, over and above their other personal and school responsibilities, it's quite something to see what they are able to put out and perform.
we know that Western is always a powerhouse, especially in football, and you get past them in the regular season as you build towards that first undefeated season since 2005. Any fingernails left, Kate? I mean, how are you feeling as you watch this progression towards 8-0?
You know what? I am not nervous. I know that this is a group led by OUA Coach of the Year, Michael Folds, last year. And he has them ready. They stay hungry. They have a mentality of, winning the week and staying 1-0 on the week. They don't get too mired in, what's happened earlier in the season, what's happened around the league throughout the year. They are a very focused and always prepared group. Certainly, we like to think our purple is a little bit better than the Western down the road, and so we feel very ready and excited for what's to come.
Confident for the game on Saturday?
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I think when you are led by the 2023 Coach of the Year and the 2023 OUA MVP Taylor Elgersma at quarterback, we're in really good hands, and I know that they feel that they have some unfinished business after meeting Western in this same game last year at Western. So if ever there was a time to be ready and show up, it's this Saturday.
Special players, a special coach to be sure, and I know the community is buzzing with excitement. How can we get the chance, Kate, to be a part of that crowd on Saturday?
Thank you. Well, tickets are on sale, but I anticipate sold out by the end of the day. We are at about, I think as of this morning, 94% sold on our tickets. So act fast on our laurierathletics.com website and get your tickets.
The entire school really has done the community proud, but particularly the purple and gold on the football team this year. Best of luck. Let's go. Let's beat Western, Kate.
My gosh. I know it. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Thank you very much for joining the show this morning. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Mike.
Kate McRae Bristol is the athletic director at Wilfrid Laurier University. It's the big one. It is the big one as Laurier hosts its first Yates Cup since 2005, so the first in almost 2 full decades. They're hosting Western, so it's a rematch of last year, played at Western when Western got the better of Laurier. Western's purple was a little purpler last year. This year, it's Laurier's chance to return the favor, shall we say. Yates Cup, hosted in Waterloo, the undefeated Golden Hawks going up against Western at University Stadium in Waterloo on Saturday. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Remembrance Day is next Monday. We remember, lest we forget. And I think you're going to really enjoy this next story of a Kitchener man who was a prisoner of war in Japan during World War II. And still managed, even during his imprisonment, to create something beautiful to honor his fallen comrades. We'll tell you that story coming up right here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. When I was first made aware of this story, I knew right away we wanted to get the storyteller onto the show with us. The timing could not be better, being just 5 days away from Remembrance Day, and the story of a soldier from Kitchener who is or was a prisoner of war during World War II and still managed, despite that imprisonment, to create something beautiful that honored his fallen comrades. That's the synopsis, if you will. But the storyteller sits across from me in studio in the form of Angela Reid. It's great to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike, and thanks for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Great. Thank you for writing the book, The Roll of Honor, and for bringing this story to our attention and to life. It's so important.
Yeah, you're welcome. And they are important stories, for sure. When I was coming into the building, I ran into a gentleman, and we were talking about the veterans that are left, and there isn't many World War II veterans left. And those that are gone, their stories have died with them. So one of the reasons me wanting to write the book is to honor my grandparents and to keep those stories going, because they're so important. We're so fortunate in the country that we live in and the freedoms that we have, that stories like this should be told.
Without question.
And, my grandfather's story, he fought in the Battle of Hong Kong, and that battle was overshadowed by Hitler's war. And the focus was on Europe and Britain at that time. And the soldiers that fought in Hong Kong and were imprisoned in Japan for 4.5 years, what they went through was even more atrocious than what was going on in Germany and Britain. And they were called the Forgotten People. And the thing that came to light was when Pearl Harbor was bombed, when the Americans got involved, and then they were going into Japan. So my grandfather, when he was put into prison, he wanted to do his tapestry to represent those soldiers that died in his battalion, so that their group, their battalion, which was the Company A, 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots, that those soldiers would not die in vain and their names would always be left in the hearts of those other soldiers. And when he was doing that tapestry, he used pieces of clothing, articles of clothing from other POWs that died, and each name on that tapestry, he used their gray woolen socks, and he would unravel them, and that's what he used to embroider each name with. And he did that in the evening after 14 hours working in a steel factory. And it was slave labor at that time in the Japanese POW camps. And he kept it hidden under the floorboards and his sleeping mat for 4.5 years. Because if the Japanese soldiers would have found it, they would have confiscated it and probably have beaten them, because they were beaten every day in the camps. It was quite horrendous.
You brought with you, I'm going to try to lift it. It's heavy, but I want it to be seen on Rogers TV here, if we can. But this is the actual tapestry.
This is the tapestry.
Yeah.
So the red background is my grandfather's red bandana that was on his army uniform. And then you can see all the different threads that he used from the articles of clothing and the letters engraved for the men's, the POWs that died. That's what he used, the socks, and unraveled and embroidered. The detail is outstanding.
It's incredible. Anglo-American Japanese War, a company, 2nd Battalion, the Royal Scots.
Yes.
To the officers, men who fell defending Hong Kong.
Yes.
And then all of those names on there: Brown, Gray, Ellis, Casey, Glover, Campbell. It goes on.
Right.
Gorgeous.
Yes,
gorgeous.
It is. And the centerpiece, that is St. Andrew. That's the patron of Scotland. He was the patron who watched over the soldiers all through the Royal Scots, who've been, they were in King Charles I started the Royal Scots in 1633. So they're one of the oldest regiments. And they're very proud on those that are left.
How did you first become aware of your grandfather's story?
As a young girl, my grandmother always talked about the war, and then she started talking about our grandfather's story about being in Japan and the Battle of Hong Kong. He didn't talk a lot about it, but he did give some stories away, and then we just started asking our grandfather different questions about it. And because he was such a participant in the Branch 50 Legion in Kitchener here, I would go down to the Legion, sometimes have to pick him up. And I sat with a few of the people, few soldiers, Canadian. He fought with the Canadian the Winnipeg Grenadiers, the Royal Rifles of Canada. He fought beside the Sikhs out of India. So there was some of them would be down the Legion, and they would tell their tales as well. And then it just became a bigger and bigger, and then we put the stories together. And fortunately, my grandfather had kept a lot of his war records. And he was still involved with the Royal Scots here in Canada. And he went back to Scotland quite a bit. And there was a lot of notes and journals and diaries. So I was able to take a lot of that information and research through it and build that story around that as well.
How did it feel for you to put this into a book? What was that process like?
It was a labor of love. And it was a very emotional journey, because some of the things that my grandfather talked about were definitely emotional, but to read it in writing that other men were talking about and some of the atrocities that I didn't know that my grandfather suffered through. To read through that was very difficult indeed. And because, I wasn't there every day with him, of course, I'm going by stories to build his day-to-day and what that must have looked like for him and his comrades. And the other part of the story as well is my grandmother's story. Her home was the first to be bombed in Scotland by a German plane that was off. He dropped the bomb accidentally, and he was supposed to hit the docks, but it hit my grandmother's home. So her house was the first to be bombed, and her family were the first casualties of war in Scotland, and their names are recorded in the Edinburgh Castle. I've been home to Scotland a few times to actually see that. So the stories are, told separately, but they interweave and comes to a pretty spectacular ending.
Angela Reid is in studio with us. She's the author of The Roll of Honor, and what an incredible story it is. A prisoner of war in Japan during World War II that creates from cloth from his comrades' uniforms a tapestry to remember them always. We'll continue our conversation. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Nick Massaro was a soldier captured in Hong Kong during World War II, spent time as a prisoner of war, and while there, created a tapestry to remember his fallen comrades. Nick's granddaughter, Angela Reid, in studio with us this morning. She has written a book about her grandfather and this beautiful tapestry he created. It's called The Roll of Honor. Angela, you brought this in framed, beautiful tapestry with you today. Thank you. How, though, did it get from where it was created in Japan 80 years ago to this studio today?
Well, it's quite the story on how it's traveled. In 1954, my grandparents were immigrating from Scotland to Canada, and the Royal Scots asked my grandfather to bring his tapestry into the Glen Coast Barracks in Edinburgh. And there they were going to celebrate his immigration and put his Roll of Honor up on the wall and, honor those that had fallen and celebrate the surviving. Well, my grandfather celebrated a little too much, was a little bit inebriated, and he left it behind. So there was no time to backtrack as my grandparents, like I said, were coming over to Canada. So he had left it behind with a heavy heart. Years later, he went back to Scotland, and still being a Royal Scot, he decided to put an advert into the Scotland's patriotic magazine called The Thistle. So they had put the ad in, and if anyone came across it, they were to get in touch with the name of the person in this advert. So my grandfather went back to Canada, and they kept in touch, and years went by, and nothing came up. Well, in 1991, the Scotland's Royal Scot Association put out an advert that my grandfather's tapestry had been found. And it was up in Inverness in Scotland, hanging in the barracks up there in Fort George. And what's extraordinary about this story is that my third cousins are also Royal Scots, and they fought in the Gulf War and the Iraq War. And they were there at the time that my grandfather's tapestry was found, and they realized the history was this Royal Scot POW from Japan. So anyway, they ended up taking it on their travels in the 1990s, I think in the late 1990s, to places like Germany, England, Wales, and then back to Scotland. And then in 2005, my family took my grandparents' ashes back to Scotland to be buried. And at that time, the Royal Scots were being amalgamated with the Scottish Own Borders. It's another regiment group. So at that time, my cousins decided that they were going to present my mother with my grandfather's tapestry. So after we had the huge celebration of life for my grandparents, my mother was awarded that, and we brought it back home to Canada. And it's been with us ever since.
That's absolutely incredible, the journey that the tapestry itself has been on. You brought with you this morning, and I love it because I recognize that masthead from our old Kitchener-Waterloo record, the old KW record, but from 1989.
Yes.
And your grandfather wrote a piece for the paper?
Yeah, so what happened was in 1989, that was the year that Emperor Hirohito died. And at the time, Brian Mulroney was our prime minister, and he had sent the general, governor, and a couple of representatives over to Japan for that funeral. Well, there was a lot of mixed emotions about that. My grandfather was not happy. A lot of the Canadians, like the Winnipeg Grenadiers, the Royal Rifles, even some of the Indian troops were not happy that there was representatives going over there. So they interviewed my grandfather because it was such a big controversy at the time. And I just want to give a quote that my grandfather had said in that article. He said, "I harbor no animosity to the Japanese people, yet I will never forgive nor forget the militarists of half a century ago. Above all, I hold Hirohito responsible. We were there, we went through their savage treatment. They beat us, starved us, stabbed us each day. They watched us die day by day. We shall never forget. Sending representatives from Canada is a slap in the face to each British and Canadian and Indian soldier who fought, were imprisoned, and lost their lives." The president of the National Prisoners of War Association, many veterans agreed with my grandfather's views. My grandfather not alone received no reparations. The former POWs of Britain rallied together to fight not only for compensation, but for recognition for each day that they were subjected to forced labor and torture. He worked effortlessly writing letters and keeping in touch with the Royal Scots and the British government. And finally, in the year 2000, after years of fighting of what they were referred to as the Forgotten People, the Ministry of Defense announced that each surviving veteran or widow would receive a debt of honor of £10,000. Now, unfortunately, my grandfather had passed away by then, and my grandmother received the payment with a very heavy heart, knowing that her husband did not live to see his accomplishments. And my grandfather died peacefully on May 3rd, 1995, surrounded by his family. Lest we forget. Lest we forget. I was just thinking, and so this from an article in the KW Record, Feb 20, 1989, and then 6 years later, your grandfather passes. How do you feel as Remembrance Day approaches? How much more significant, perhaps, is the day for you, Angela? It's interesting because the older I get, the more emotional I feel about it. And I think I can only say is that I'm getting to an age where I'm starting to appreciate things more in my life than we do in our youth. We think we're invincible in our youth, and we think everything comes so easy to us in our youth, right? And we have to stop and remember that people like my grandfather died for these rights and our freedoms. And I recognize that just as I age. Before I let you go, again, I want to just thank you for bringing the tapestry with you. It is so beautiful. We got to see as much as we could on Rogers TV, but where can we learn more about this tapestry? Find your book, The Roll of Honor. Okay. There is my website, and my website is www.abreadauthor.com. And on there is a bookstore tab that you can go on there. I'm 30,000 online stores worldwide. I'm on stores such as Amazon, Indigo, Barnes & Noble, Waterstone, and I'm at our Waterloo Wordsworth store downtown Waterloo, which is really great. That I'm working with a lot of independent bookstores that are wanting to carry my book. And there's another tab for events. So I am going to be hosting a lot of events, especially coming up to 2025, because that's the 80th anniversary of World War II ending. And this Sunday, I will be at our local Scottish pub, McMullen's on Highland. So if anybody wants to come down, I'll be there at 4 o'clock and come down and see Ian McMullen and have a great meal and get to see the tapestry. That's a great place to do it. It's very fitting. And you mentioned, too, the connection. Are we going to find you at the Branch 50 on Monday by any chance? I was going to actually try to get down there. I still might be able to do it. It's hard to set things up. So I'm going to be working mostly with the branches come the 80th year anniversary for next year. Great. Yeah. Okay. So McMullen's on Highland this Sunday, 4 o'clock. That's correct. And I want to encourage you to check out abreadauthor.com and learn more. Get yourself a copy of The Roll of Honor and learn more about this story. Angela, thank you for keeping the story alive. It's so important. And thanks for being here today. Yeah, and thank you for having me, Mike. An absolute pleasure. Okay, Angela Reid joins us on the show this morning. abreadauthor.com. The Roll of Honor is the story of Kitchener's Nick Massaro, who was imprisoned as a prisoner of war during World War II in Japan. And this tapestry has made the journey to our studio and this story today. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Well, that's not the kind of story you get to hear every day, but I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Remembrance Day, just 5 days away. You've seen the poppies, I'm sure. Make sure you get to a ceremony at one of our cenotaphs if you're able on Monday morning at 11 o'clock. Great to have Angela Reed in studio with us to share the story of her book, The Roll of Honor, which chronicles the journey of a tapestry that her grandfather made while he was a prisoner of war in Japan during World War II. And he used articles of clothing from his fallen comrades to weave into this beautiful tapestry so that they would have their memories preserved forever. And you can learn more about the book, get yourself a copy, see the tapestry for yourself at abreedauthor.com. An incredible story. And by the way, Nick Massaro, the imprisoned officer back in World War II, ties right here to the fine city of Kitchener and Royal Canadian Legion Branch 50. Remembrance Day is Monday next, lest we forget. All right, I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. Then, supporting Ukrainian refugees in Cambridge and raising funds for music education. Those stories coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. This coming Sunday will mark a fundraising event in support of the Kiwanis Music Education Fund. It's going to be happening at the Jazz Room in Waterloo. And here to talk more about it with us is Danielle Beck, who's the coordinator of the KW Kiwanis Music Festival. Danielle, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Oh, good. Just getting ready for our event on Sunday.
Yeah, it's into that time, isn't it? Crunch time getting ready.
It is, yes.
Let's talk about the why behind the event, Danielle. What is it that we're trying to do here and raise funds for the Kiwanis Music Education Fund? Why is that important?
Well, I think it's really important that music should be accessible to anybody who's interested in participating. And unfortunately, for some people, financially, it's not accessible. And we're really trying to address that problem with the Kiwanis Music Education Fund. So we're looking to fund music lessons for kids who are maybe experiencing some financial hardship, maybe don't have access to good quality music lessons.
What makes this important to you? Why is providing these music lessons something that can be enriching to a child?
I mean, we know music has so many values for education and development. It has social benefits, cognitive benefits, and emotional benefits. And for me personally, I really identify with these kids because I was one of those kids. I was a kid that was really excited about music right from the beginning, and I really, really wanted to take music lessons, but we couldn't always afford it. When I did have access to programs, it was because of bursary programs and people who were willing to donate time or money to ensure that kids like me were getting lessons. And so now in my position, I really want to pay that forward, and I want to make sure that kids in our area have those same opportunities going forward. So for me, it's really important, and I just think it can do some wonderful things for the kids in our community.
I couldn't agree more, and that is a fantastic story. So what's your musical journey been like, Danielle?
Well, I started on the piano when I was quite young, and because of school band programs, I was able to start learning to play the saxophone. Again, I was just loved it right from the beginning. I knew that I wanted to have a career in music, and with a lot of support, again, from my high school teachers, members of my community, I was able to go on to study music at Laurier, and from there, started my professional career as a musician. So, yeah, it's a big part of my life, obviously.
Absolutely it is. Yeah. So tell us about Sunday at the Jazz Room. What's this fundraiser going to look like and sound like, I guess, since we're talking music?
Well, we've got an exciting lineup. We've got several performers coming out. So the event kicks off at 4 o'clock. The doors are opening at 3:30. And we're going to feature 10 performers, student performers. So most of these kids were involved in the Kiwanis Music Festival in this past year. And a few of the kids are actually our current bursary recipients as well. So you can see where the funds are going to. And then after our student performers, we're going to have some professional ensembles who are made up of teachers and musicians in our area. We have the Stillwater String Trio is performing, and Blondes on 88 are playing some fabulous piano duets for us. So this is a really fun lineup, lots of musicians to see.
You talk about those students who had appeared at the last Kiwanis Music Festival, and that, for those who may not know, that's a pretty darn big deal. Like, we get some of the best and the brightest at that festival every year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Kitchener-Waterloo's largest annual education event, or music education event. It runs for 2 weeks. We see over 1,600 kids come through the festival during that period, whether they're coming through their high school band, choir, and orchestra programs, or whether they're coming from private lessons and performing. So we really see a huge display of talent and hard work from the kids that participate in the festival.
So how... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the part of the inspiration for the bursary as well is we want to make sure that the festival itself remains accessible. And again, getting lessons is the first step to being able to participate in a festival like this for a lot of kids.
How can we get tickets to the fundraiser on Sunday at the Jazz Room so we can support this great work that you're doing?
So we have our Eventbrite sales up and running. So you can either search Kiwanis Music Education on Eventbrite, or you can go directly to our website, kwkiwanismusicfestival.com, and on our homepage, there's a link to the Eventbrite page. And even if you're not able to attend this event but want to help out, if you go to our page, our website, find the donate tab, and you can fill out our Canada Helps donation form. Everything would be tax deductible. And just make sure that you select the Kiwanis Music Education Fund on the donation page so that your funds get directed to the right place.
How many students are you able to support through this fund annually?
Well, currently, this is our first year where we're fully up and running with the program. We have 8 kids in lessons this fall, and we're able to support them for the entire school year. So I'm pretty excited about that, but I want to see our program expand to more kids. Applications are open for a new batch of kids to start lessons in January. And of course, we can hope that all of these kids will continue to be supported in the next school year, which means we really need to raise the funds for them.
I love the work you're doing. I hope we can pack that Jazz Room on Sunday and help you continue doing that great work. Danielle, thank you very much for being here this morning.
And thank you so much for sharing about this wonderful event, Mike.
Always happy to do it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Danielle Beck is the coordinator of the annual KW Kiwanis Music Festival. Joins us this morning to talk about this coming Sunday's music education fundraiser at the Jazz Room in Waterloo. You know, it's right there attached to the Hoother Hotel. You'll hear the Stillwater String Trio. You'll hear Blondes on 88. You'll hear a number of the students that have come through the program, and tickets are just $35. You can get them at kwkiwanismusicfestival.com. It's a long URL, but it spells out very easily. kwkiwanismusicfestival.com. And you can help this important music education fund so that we can make those music lessons more accessible financially to more students in our community. Because I think it goes without saying, right? The benefits, the enrichment to one's life, a young person's life that comes through being exposed to music, learning how to play an instrument, learning how to sing, etc. So I love what they're doing. 8 students in now, and Danielle wants to ensure that no student who wishes lessons is held back just for financial reasons. So it's the Music Education Fundraiser this coming Sunday, the 10th, from 4 until 8 at the Jazz Room in Uptown Waterloo. Tickets at kwkiwanismusicfestival.com. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I hope that by now you have heard of Waterloo Region's grassroots response. It is exactly what it sounds like in terms of being a grassroots group of volunteers. The response is to the war in Ukraine and the refugee crisis that has followed as Ukrainians flee their war-torn homeland and end up spread out across the globe, including here in the region of Waterloo. And Waterloo Region Grassroots Response sprung up in order to help these newcomers, these Ukrainian refugees, settle in our community. Hisham El-Miari is a member of that Waterloo Region Grassroots Response, and specific to this morning's conversation, the coordinator of the upcoming Warm Hearts New Homes Ukrainian Care Evening. Hisham, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Everything good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Tell us about what's happening next Friday at Hespeler Baptist Church with the Warm Hearts New Homes Ukrainian Care Evening.
Well, Mike, we really appreciate you inviting us to your show, and we'll be having an event coming November 15th at one of the supportive churches in Hespeler, where one of the guest houses that we are hosting in it, Ukrainian newcomers. We will be having an event. Yes, you said everything right. Warm Hearts, New Homes, Ukrainian Care event. It will be like an evening for some Ukrainian cuisine exhibition of Ukrainian ruchnik, which some type of cloth, like kind of cloth that's decorative and ritual cloth that the Ukrainians have in their tradition. Ukrainian musicians will be there, some live music from one of the newcomers themselves. Someone will be playing bandura, that's an Ukrainian instrument, and some raffles. So we have like quite an event that for fundraising mainly, that we have those events often, let's say, but not quite often as much. So it's about making the community know more about the Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian music, cuisine, and everything.
What inspired you to get involved with the grassroots response to help Ukrainian refugees in our community?
Well, as a newcomer myself, I feel the struggle. I understand how it's not easy to settle easily anywhere away from your home. So, it's a real big struggle for every newcomer. It isn't easy when you are displaced, leaving your home, and knowing that maybe you will not have a home anymore. So, Ukrainians here in Canada are very glad for Canada and the Canadian community for supporting them, helping secure future and so on. So Canadians also help me, so I seem like, for me, it's also a job to help others. And our organization has been built by people that believe that they can make a difference, and I also believe in that. So that's why I contributed in this, started as a volunteer, and now I'm a coordinator in Cambridge, and we're trying to do this event, inviting more people, so people in our community will know more about Ukrainians, try to help Ukrainians settle here in Canada.
How great is the need, Hisham? What is it that we're seeing, these refugees that arrive here? What kind of need do we need to meet?
Well, it's very hard for Ukrainians, to find and secure houses and employment as soon as they come here to Canada. As you know, you have to deal with expensive, you have to find a job, and even Canadians is struggling with the housing here in Canada. So it's even worse to Ukrainian fleeing war, coming here, not know what to do, and especially when you have a language barrier, that won't be easy for you. So the biggest deal is what organization is helping with is housing, employment, translation, and all of those small stuff. Let's say that they are necessities, but you don't think about them until you need them. But mainly the hard work that has been done by the organization is about finding housing. So they'll come, they don't know where to go. Organizations support them with those housing. We find hosts for some hosts. Some Canadian volunteers will host a family, will support them, and so on. So we have over the time since February 22, we've opened almost over 13 transaction houses in Waterloo region. We had houses in Listowel, Mary Hills, Brunner, Waterloo, Kitchener, Cambridge, and I've been working with people almost over 2,000 people, Ukrainian, that asked for help, and we had application for help. More than 4,000 people were hosted, families and so on. And we helped securing employment for all people, but now it's going low, so we're always in progress trying to make events, fundraising, so we can secure more employment, get to know new businesses, and so on. So because the request is still going on, people are still coming, Ukrainians still need help, especially those that are struggling with the language.
How can we get tickets for next Friday evening's event, Warm Hearts, New Homes?
Well, for the event that will be happening November 15th from 7 till 9 p.m. So the tickets you can get the tickets online through our website. It's wrgrassrootsresponse.ca, or you can contact also us on number 519-2428-524, or through our email www.wrgrassrootsresponse@gmail.com. So the tickets we call them tickets, but actually they are donations. So let's say you're planning to buy a ticket. That's what you're planning to donate for the organization, for the people to support them. So you can put your own price for the ticket, but it starts from $49. You can find it online on our website.
Hisham, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you very much for joining the show this morning.
Thank you for inviting us, Mike.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too, bye.
Hisham El-Miari is a coordinator of the Warm Hearts New Homes Ukrainian Care Evening. It happens next Friday night, the 15th of November at Hespeler Baptist Church. There will be traditional Ukrainian cuisine. Sign me up for some borscht and some cabbage rolls, please and thank you. There will be live music. There will be traditional Ukrainian clothing, and you'll hear some stories from Ukrainian refugees who have found their way to our community and are finding a way to get by. If you want to read between the lines just a little bit, isn't Hisham's story the kind of immigrant story that we love to hear? He's thinking on the support that he was provided as a newcomer to Canada, to this community, to get on his feet, to get accustomed to this new place and the new language, etc. And now he wants to give back to other newcomers who are going through the very same things that he just went through. Pretty incredible stuff. And you can be a part of next Friday evening's Warm Hearts New Homes Ukrainian Care Evening at Hespeler Baptist Church. It all starts at 7 o'clock. Tickets online, wrgrassrootsresponse.ca. wrgrassrootsresponse.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I'm thinking back again on that boss from many years ago here at the radio station. Busy show for busy people, Farwell. It's a busy show for busy people. And he would always be snapping his fingers and flailing his arms. Busy show for busy people. I feel like we've had a very busy show today. I'm almost tired from it. We have another hour, though, to go. And I have a feeling there is much more for us to discuss following the results of last night's presidential election in the United States. We started our show that way because, of course, this is the biggest story in the world. And I think the next hour, as we open the phone lines for the talkback hour, can be dominated by the Donald. Rob's email to Mike at 570news.com. What many people are missing is the big picture. Towns and lives have been dramatically hit hard by plant closures. Many food items are pricier. Fuel is high. Rents are higher than ever before. Immigration has overwhelmed many. And when Trump was in before, there were no wars. Brad's email to Mike at 570news.com. Am I out to lunch? Trump again? What have the Americans come to? I have a brother down there, so I'm not biased. The man is both a convict and a narcissist. Sorry, I just listen to you all the time, and you make sense, unlike the Americans. Well, Brad, we're going to try to make sense of it in the next hour as we open the phone lines, and I'm sure you've got something to say about another 4 years. Trump 2.0 is on the way. You're on the way to the 570 News Center for an update. Our friends at Rogers TV Cable 20 are done for the day. Thanks to them for producing the TV side of this show. Open phone lines for our 12 o'clock talkback hour coming up on the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. And so long, Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
Just hearing in that update with Matt Hutchison, the reference to Vice President J.D. Vance. Earlier today, an email from Dale in response to some of our conversation around Donald Trump 2.0. And one of the suggestions, I believe it was Willie who called and said, there's still 2 months before Trump is officially sworn into office. That's lots of time for that target on his back to be used. I would never advocate for such a thing, but Willie seems to think that an assassination attempt may be successful in the next couple of months after there have been previously thwarted attempts. But Dale's email to Mike at 570news.com reminded me the alternative, should Willie's prognostication come to pass, is J.D. Vance would become president for the next 4 years. How do you feel about that? We are entering the second Donald Trump era. Another 4 years of Trump in the United States. He ran in 2016 and beat Hillary Clinton. He ran in 2020 and lost, albeit grudgingly, to Joe Biden. And now he ran again this year versus Kamala Harris, and he's going back to the Oval Office, the first president to accomplish this feat, having won, lost, and won again since 1892. Let's go to the phones on this talkback hour. Hear your thoughts. Kyle, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, I had a great night with a charcuterie board and a bottle of wine watching the election last night till 1:30 in the morning. It was, I had fun watching it, but I was going to say there's a couple of people, and not just on here, but I hear people all the time saying that, there's no wars because of Trump. Putin's afraid of Trump. I would strongly disagree with that message right there. Don't forget, Putin was part of the KGB. Donald Trump was part of what? Oh, yeah, that's right, bankrupting seven of his companies. Let's be honest here. Putin's not afraid of Trump. If he was afraid of Trump, I don't think that you'd be in a situation you are today. The other thing I want to say is it's amazing how, I shouldn't say amazing, but it's crazy to think that the United States is such a powerful nation, a G7 nation, and how divided the world, the country is today. I mean, I got American friends on Facebook on both political sides of the party, and when Trump was announced that he was president today, it just reflects that how divided people are. So I just wanted to reiterate that there, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate the call. I think we're less divided here, but not as much less as you might think. I feel as though we've arrived at a point here in Canada as well that when you are too vocal and or public about your political leanings, we're just so polarized that others may look at that and say, you know what, I'm not even going to engage in conversation with you anymore because our political leanings are different. So I'm not sure the division is a whole lot less here. I like to think it is less. I don't know how much less. Jason, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. 4 years ago, I remember waking up with dread and despair and, not just wondering what the heck is going on. I don't have the same feeling this time around because we know what to expect from this president. We know the gong show that it's going to be for the next 4 years. I don't want to sound harsh, but the American people will get what they elected. And so, I'm not sure if they realize I'm sure they do realize what they're in store for. But on a side note, I'm actually flying out with my family tomorrow out to California for the next 10 days. And so it'll be interesting to see what the mood is like there. The friend I'm staying with, he is a Republican, but I know for a fact he hates Trump. And so, I have no doubt in my mind that he and I will get into a political conversation because that's what we do. But at the end, we know what to expect for the next 4 years. And, not as much dread and despair.
All right, Jason, appreciate the call. It's an interesting outlook not to have as much dread and despair this time around as perhaps the last time around. I remember some of the rhetoric. I'll never forget, in fact, a colleague of mine back in 2016 making the comparison between Trump winning and 9/11. That was a lot on the rich side for my blood back then. But hey, to each his or her own. And everybody is going to feel differently, I would suppose, about this outcome. It's a lot easier for Jason and I from our rather comfortable perches here in Canada in the region of Waterloo and the city of Kitchener to say, yeah, you know what, we've seen it before, we're going to see it again, because there's definitely not a direct impact on us. I think that there are some immigrant communities that are justifiably concerned in the United States right now, and probably other communities that I haven't even given thought to yet because it's not on my radar, but they will have a much different feeling about this. Bigger picture, I hear where Jason's coming from. We have been down this road before, haven't we? And the world did not end. I'm very curious, strictly from an observer's perspective, what the next 4 years looks like, feels like, where we're at in 2028. Will there be another Trump, as in Donald Jr., waiting in the wings and make it Trump 3.0? Who knows? But Trump 2.0 is underway, and your Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The Talkback Hour is your 60 minutes every day to have your say on the day's issues. And the issue of this day is Donald Trump, the 47th president of the United States, same as the 45th. There was just a 4-year interruption by some guy named Joe. Let's get right back to the phones on your Talkback Hour. Robert, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
I'm good. I'm hoping, first of all, congratulations to the U.S. Hopefully the euphoria that they're feeling will be the same that we feel when our fearless leader is dethroned. Also, I laugh when I listen to a lot of folks calling in. I don't think they really understand U.S. politics. We have to clearly remember this is a country, and ours, we're doing it with Ukraine. Democracy, this was a group of individuals that came in, took the presidency away from the standing president and said, "You're not running anymore." No election for it. They just threw her to the front. This was a woman that didn't win one vote when she ran on her own for presidency 4 years earlier, shoved her into the situation, and everyone's surprised that she lost. There wasn't one thing that the woman didn't flip-flop on. Every stance that she had 4 years ago apparently miraculously changed. And anytime she was invited anywhere to talk in open forum, she turned it down. It's not really hard to wrap your head around why he won not only the Electoral College, but won the popular vote. So most would say that this man has a mandate from the people to be able to go out and change what has to be changed, period. So congratulations to the U.S. Thank God you got in the leader that you're supposed to, and hopefully you guys can make the changes as quickly as possible, because we forget up here what it must feel like to have 15 to 22 million illegal immigrants come over in 4 years. They have 380,000 children. They don't even have a clue where they are.
All right, Robert. Appreciate the call. Listen, there's no question that Kamala Harris had too little time to mount anything in the way of a significant campaign. And it was light on issues, to say the very least. The part that I still have a difficult time with is how, and I mean, it's water under the bridge, but I'm really fascinated that somebody like Donald Trump could even stand as a candidate in an election for the highest office in the world. I really do. Then again, to Robert's point, I mean, Kamala Harris was essentially foisted upon the American people and the Democratic Party. So, you know, there's that aspect of it too. It's going to be a long 4 years in the wilderness for the Democrats, and I'm really curious to see how they emerge from this. I'll just share with you again, because I like the quote so much. Will McAvoy is a fictional character. However, from the excellent HBO TV series The Newsroom, Jeff Daniels, who plays the character Will McAvoy, had this to say.
You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so damn always?
That's a great question, and I'm sure the liberals, a.k.a. the Democrats, are asking it again today. Back to the phones on our Talkback Hour. Norma, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, my opinion, I didn't necessarily want Trump to win. I thought Kamala would have been an interesting choice. But at the same time, I was concerned about the violence that we might see if Trump didn't get in. So I guess I'm somewhat relieved that he did, because I think it would have been another January 6th situation. The comment one of your callers said about him not making it to getting sworn in, that scares me, because that means that J.D. Vance would be president. No, I think that would be horrendous. But the comment, I wanted your opinion on something I heard, and I don't know if it's true, something about Nevada disallowing several of the younger voters because their signatures didn't match their driver's license signature, their electronic signature. And you know how, when you sign on a tablet or something, that never looks like your real signature. But apparently there was a whole lot of younger voters that were not allowed to vote because their signatures did not match their driver's license. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, Norma, I appreciate the call and raising that. We talked about it at home last night, and there were some challenges verifying signatures on almost 30,000 ballots in Nevada. And isn't that interesting? I mean, when you think about it, look, I hate to be the guy that is the old guy in the room, but I'm usually the old guy in the room. And how does one who is of a certain generation even have a signature today? Because y'all don't write things down, right? Everything is typed. Everything is electronic. So yes, a good number of Gen Z voters were struggling to sign their names, and that made it difficult to verify signatures because they don't have anything like a signature because they're not accustomed to actually putting pen to paper. So I don't know that it leads to any change to the outcome or anything like that. I think it's just a little bit of a curiosity attached to the many curiosities in this election that has brought Donald Trump back to office in the United States. Remember, as I go back reflecting on what Robert said moments ago, we so rarely vote governments in. We vote governments out. And I think that's what they've done in the United States. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Noon until 1 every day here on the program. It's the 12 o'clock talkback hour, giving you the chance to have your say on the issues of the day. And the issue of this day is Donald Trump. Back to the phones on the talkback hour. Andre, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. Anyway, Short, thanks for being you. And I'm not surprised for the election. I said it before. I don't like the guy, but, I think you said it very clearly, and the professor said it very clearly, is that I think you touched the nail on the head when you said the problem is what the heck did Democrat do, and she didn't have time. Truly, I thought it was going to be tight because, for one, I want a woman and to run the world, and for two, she's also color. We should be long time ago ready for that. Like, come on, hello now. And I thought that would have been the big challenge. But the thing is that I was disappointed is you look at something like Danielle Smith when she talks, and you look at her. I was heartbroken as a person who represented it and said on the news that I'm not going to talk to you, but I'll talk to you the next day. Like, that is weak. And to me, that was like very hurtful of me thinking that she could have run the world, right? But the thing is that I'm not surprised, like Trump said, oh, you'll know at about 9:30. Like, what? Your ego is huge, bud. And I believe, like you, that it's going to take about 2 weeks. And it didn't. So he was right. Another thing, he was right. Me and him, I think, have the same education. I think high school degree. But he said that if you don't vote, you are a jackwagon. You know what I mean? Like, hello, stupid, right? Like, what kind of person? But he's right. You don't vote, you are stupid. And that's why I vote, because my say is important. And I'm just stunned by that. Am I worried? The thing I'm concerned, I think, is the change in the money. You know, he did lose a lot of money, and he doesn't want to do the same mistake. He didn't thought he would be out of the office back then, and he did. And his ego kicked him, and his people backed him up. Yes, he's very loved. But the thing is that I think this time he's going to be smarter. But I'm just a little bit worried about the money. Like, I think that Bitcoin thing, I wish that Rush would talk more about it. But take care, Mike. And it was good. It doesn't change nothing here. We are who we are. And, yeah. Take care, Mike.
You too, Andre. Take care.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone is now dumber for having listened to it.
I always try to follow the dots and connect them as Andre goes along. I love him like a brother. I could not connect. Well, I mean, I think I could. There were bits about what Donald Trump said towards the end of the campaign. There were points about Bitcoin having a great day on news. At least it started very strong, et cetera. It's just not much weaves the thoughts together, right? It's just like, here are all the things that I heard, and now I'm just going to repeat them. And when Andre says we weren't ready for a woman of color, I think we forget the man of color sometimes that we had in office in the United States from 2008 to 2016 in Barack Obama. 12 o'clock talkback hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. more years. 4 more years. 4 more years. That's usually the chant you hear at a re-election campaign. It's a re-election of sorts after a one-term interruption. Donald Trump is coming back for a second term in the Oval Office. Your 12 o'clock talkback hour continues. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, I found that interesting what one of your callers mentioned about the signatures. In my opinion, if that did happen, then there should be like a recount. In my opinion, it's a legitimate complaint, not where Mr. Trump didn't like the count because
Trump didn't mind the count at all. If that's what you said, he didn't like the count. He loved the count. He won.
No, but the last time around, he didn't like the count.
But Grant, it doesn't matter about 2020 anymore, right? This is 2024, so that's all that matters.
Well, if I'm running against him, I want to recount. It's a legitimate complaint.
But it wasn't, Grant. It wasn't even close. Like a recount's not going to help you. You're way too many votes behind.
Yeah, but if those signatures were denied because of not...
Yeah, but we're talking tens of thousands of votes when you lost by millions. Like, it's not even close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's... I hope he doesn't... for the people's sake, I don't know much about the politics in Canada or that. I just hope he doesn't create a lot of ruckus for the people in the States.
Well, I guess we're going to find out. The next 4 years should be very interesting. Jason, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I know a lot of people are worried about like instability and stuff like that, but I actually see this as a hope that there could be some more stability worldwide anyways, because I know like everybody in 2016 said that, if Trump gets in, we're going to have World War III, but under Obama, Russia took parts of Ukraine. Under Biden, Russia took parts of Ukraine, or invaded Ukraine. Under Trump, Russia stayed in their lane. Under Obama, the Iran and its proxies were constantly attacking Israel. Under Trump, Iran and its proxies stayed in their lane. Under Biden, Iran is now not just their proxies, but Iran's actually attacking. Hopefully, now that they know Trump's getting in, hopefully they may not do their next retaliation attack, which isn't really a retaliation attack when they did it first. But and then we also, like, you look at China's posturing to take Taiwan because they know that America was very weak and they can't do nothing about it. So hopefully China will rethink. And I really don't know if he can stop the war with Ukraine and Russia because, I mean, we're years into that now, but hopefully he can settle some of that stuff down. But I think there's actually some hope. Financially, there's hope for the future then now, too. I see stability because of Trump. The weak Americans, it makes the world a dangerous place.
All right, Jason. So stability for the world order with Trump back in office in the United States. Ending wars that he has said he would end would be very interesting. I don't know that the man is a miracle worker. Susan, you're on the Talkback Hour.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Susan from Sarnia.
Susan from Sarnia.
Trump heard the reason he won is because he focused on the border, immigration, and economics. And the sad part is that Democrats have to give their head a shake and ask themselves why they did lose. Because they always run on social issues, and you're not going to win elections on social issues. You're not. Plain and simple, and I think that he will, he did hear those people, and they went for him. But the sad part is that I don't believe that he's going to unite the country. I believe he's going to hurt the people that hurt him, and it's sad. They should have been. The thing is, under Biden for the last 4 years, everything that should have gone up did, and everything that should have gone down did, but they didn't brag about it. The Democrats didn't brag about it. But the economically and Joe Biden should never have announced a second term, in my opinion, because that hurt them. And Trump knew what the people wanted. He did. But here's the bigger picture for me, the bigger picture. And I'll just be real quick. Half of my family lives in Michigan. Their education system sucks. They don't even know how to find Hudson Bay on a map. And so, yes, he loves the uneducated, and I guess the uneducated voted for him. That's it.
All right, Susan, appreciate the call. I don't know that Donald Trump is giving Americans what they want so much as he tapped into their frustrations. And those frustrations are real. So in my industry, if I can make this comparison, we have a ratings system, right? Whereby we try to get as many people listening to our station as we can. The more listeners, the more revenue we can generate because our commercials cost more, et cetera, et cetera. And so for the longest time, like we're laser focused on what's called the book, the ratings book that comes out a couple of times a year. And I had an old boss say to me, live by the book, die by the book, because it can be a bit of a finicky thing. One time, if the right people are asked the questions about the radio station they prefer, your ratings could be sky high. The next time, you might get a different group of people that answer the questions, and you don't get the same ratings, and then you're as low as you can be. You know, don't let the highs be too high. Don't let the lows be too low. I don't know how much. I really don't. Like, there's some for sure, but I don't know how much a president or prime minister or premier, I don't know how much control they actually have over the economy. I know there's got to be some, but how much? And so they're more than happy, though, to ride that wave. Oh, yeah, the economy's strong. Look at how good we are. But when the economy stinks, is it really solely the blame of the leader of the day? We've had a global economic downturn. Is every political leader worldwide responsible for it? I think, and Susan touched on it, the frustration over the sputtering economy and, yeah, immigration. Two massive issues. If you were watching any of the coverage last night and they had abortion as an issue, and it was way down below the economy and immigration. When people feel it on their dinner table, they're going to look for a change. And that's what America has done. It's your 12 o'clock talkback hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. It is your 12 o'clock talkback hour, 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Back to the phones. Want to hear from you on the issues of the day. Ibrahim, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I was listening, but I couldn't call you in the early part of your show. Well, just I want to comment about Donald Trump things. But one thing is that the credibility of the United States, I think, lost here, Mike, because democracy is, Donald Trump, he doesn't believe in democracy. The guy he was spreading lie and deception. In 2020, he was a winner. So how you can convince the world look up to the United States, leader of the democratic West? The leader is to those dictatorial leaders, they will tell them, oh, look at this guy, he was convicted and he doesn't believe even Supreme Court cleared him and he wants to come back in power. So that's the main problem is here. The second one, I don't know why two parties only they have. People, they don't have a choice, even the third or fourth one. That's the second one, the problem they have. And the third, they should leave Joe Biden in the power. And after, I think their chances will be, 50-50 could win. Because
you think Biden could have won that election? You think Joe Biden could have won?
Well, you never know, Mike. But because earlier one of your callers, he said there are people segment in society, they don't want women to become. It's not wanted, but they are not ready to elect women as a president. Hillary Clinton, one of the most educated, highly, intellectual and a politician, he lost. Right? Hello?
Yeah, I suppose. I don't think Biden would have stood a chance either, quite frankly. I think that...
Mike, older than him, people, you remember that Malaysia Prime Minister...
Listen, it's not, Ibrahim, it's not about age. It's about how old you appear. And Joe Biden appeared like he was 180.
You mean, but even the debate, Mike, Donald Trump, he wasn't doing fine. He wasn't doing good. So what?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I get Ibrahim. Appreciate the call. It's a bit of a head scratcher, but I'm gonna come back to it. You got to look at it from the other side of the coin. What were the Democrats offering that people wanted? And if you're feeling it at the dinner table, you're feeling it at the ballot box. Simple as that. Mark, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mark.
Thanks for taking my song request.
Thanks for making it. I'm afraid of Americans.
Well, I'm not actually afraid of Americans. I figured we just need some humor this morning.
I'm okay with that.
But one thing I am afraid of is sparking a trade war again. Even if we take it back to Canadian politics, I'm curious if this is kind of what Trudeau's hoping for, because I'll be honest, I'm not really a Trudeau fan. But the only time that I liked the guy was when he was standing up to Donald Trump during the trade war. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here in Canadian politics.
Agreed, Mark, and I appreciate the call. Here's the thing, and I got an email from Ernie along those same lines. I don't think you're going to have to worry about it for too long, because it's likely that by the 10th month of 2025, so 10 months after Donald Trump is officially sworn in to the Oval Office in January, Justin Trudeau will be gone. It'll be interesting to watch Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump play statesman, won't it? Ranger Joe, good afternoon.
Mikey, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing just fine, Mikey. You know what? There's no point in really going to the left and to the right and trying to figure out why Trump won. Basically, the people have spoken. What I'm more concerned about, Mike, is Trump has said before that he wasn't going to support Ukraine anymore with money and weapons if he was elected. And I believe that's going to happen, Mike. And what that'll do is it's going to open the doors for his friend, Russian president, to really go at it now with Ukraine. And then the rest of Europe are going to be very vulnerable, too. And they're already stating that they're concerned about it if Trump wins. Where would Russia stop? They wouldn't just stop at Ukraine. I mean, it's almost like the Second World War over in Europe there, too. This could escalate worst case scenario somewhere down the road. If Ukraine falls, like I say, Mikey, Europe is worried, and it could be the start of a third world war eventually. I hope I'm wrong, Mikey, but that's just the way I feel about it, and that's the way Europe feels about it, too. They're very afraid of Trump being the president. That's all I have to say, Mikey.
All right, Joe, appreciate the phone call. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. That's what the Talkback Hour is for, and we'd love to hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Final minutes of our show for another day. Final chance for you to have your say on the day's issues. Let's get back to the phones. Mary, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, Mike. As you know, I was leaning towards a certain person, and it didn't happen. But I want to say what I've over the Kamala the people, most countries went through kind of this uptick in inflation. I don't think you can blame the person in charge. What country did not have inflation?
Oh, I do not disagree. And that's why I think this is so interesting, right? The leaders will be glad to take credit for when inflation goes down and when the economy is going well. But, yeah.
Yeah, and this is like, to me, the people are thinking correctly, but, and again, I mean, like, I understand inflation is a terrible thing when you're on the line. But we had inflation. Every country had inflation. That's got nothing to do with the guy. And I think they misread the whole darn thing. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm not looking forward to the next 4 years. Are you?
Thanks for the call, Mary. Selfishly, sure, I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. Somebody in my position might say, job security, baby, because there certainly will be things to talk about, won't there? I will also just add to the conversation today, if I may be so bold as to do so, and vain, quite frankly. But I have the text messages to back it up. I believed that Trump was going to win, and mostly because people were just so disaffected with leadership, institutions, the economy, and frankly, Kamala Harris wasn't a strong enough candidate. The Democrats and the left side of the political spectrum in the United States is a mess, and it better get its house in order. It's got 4 years to figure that out. But I was texting with a buddy last night, and he asked me, who do you think's going to win? And I said, I think Trump's going to win. And he had literally bet his money on the other side because he was telling me about the what the bookmakers were offering by the way of odds. But I said, if I were putting money down, which I did not, but I would have put my money down on Trump. And here we are. I remain surprised that we have learned so soon the outcome, but here we are. And Trump 2.0 is officially upon us. All right, that marks the end of our time together for another day. Rob Snow is standing by with Now You Know. That will take you through until 3 o'clock this afternoon. Devin Robertson has been our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.